Emily Lawson was tired of the endless hours, the high stakes meetings, and the constant pressure that came with being a top corporate lawyer in New York City. She needed a break, something to reignite her passion for life beyond the confines of her law firm. On a whim, and after much urging from her best friend Sophie Turner, Emily signed up for a gourmet cooking class. It was supposed to be a fun distraction, a way to relax and learn something new. The cooking class was held in a cozy, well-equipped kitchen studio in the heart of Manhattan. As Emily walked in, she was greeted by the warm aroma of fresh herbs and simmering sauces. The space was inviting, with polished wooden counters, shiny stainless steel appliances, and shelves lined with colorful spices and cookbooks. She felt a pang of nervous excitement. This was a world far removed from the legal briefs and courtrooms she was used to. Welcome, everyone. I'm Daniel Harris, and I'll be your instructor for the next 6 weeks, a deep, pleasant voice announced. Emily looked up to see a tall, handsome man with dark hair and a friendly smile standing at the front of the room. He wore a crisp white chef's jacket that somehow managed to look both professional and approachable. Daniel began the class with a brief introduction, sharing his passion for cooking and his journey from culinary school to owning his own restaurant. He had a natural charisma that put everyone at ease, and Emily found herself captivated by his enthusiasm and confidence. The first lesson was on making a simple but classic dish, risotto. As Daniel demonstrated the techniques, Emily couldn't help but admire his skill and grace in the kitchen. She, on the other hand, felt like a fish out of water. She struggled with the knife skills, accidentally dropping a piece of onion on the floor. Daniel noticed and walked over, offering a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, it takes practice," he said, showing her the proper way to hold the knife. His hand gently guided hers, and she felt a spark of connection. His touch was warm and steady, and for a moment the chaos of her life seemed to fade away. As the weeks passed, Emily's skills in the kitchen slowly improved. She began to look forward to the classes, not just for the cooking, but for the chance to see Daniel. They often stayed late after class, chatting about everything from favorite recipes to their dreams and aspirations. Emily discovered that beneath his confident exterior, Daniel was humble and deeply passionate about his craft. He spoke about his restaurant, a small but highly regarded bistro called Le Petit Jardin, with a sparkle in his eye. One evening, after a particularly enjoyable class where they had made a delicious coq au vin, Daniel and Emily found themselves alone in the kitchen. The other students had left, and the soft hum of the city outside was the only sound breaking the comfortable silence. "Emily, you've really improved," Daniel said, leaning against the counter and looking at her with those warm brown eyes that always seemed to see right through her. "Thanks to your patience," she replied, feeling a blush creep up her cheeks. "I never thought I'd enjoy cooking this much." "It's not just about the food," Daniel said thoughtfully. "It's about the experience, the creativity, the way it brings people together. Cooking can be a form of therapy, a way to express yourself." Emily nodded, understanding more than she could articulate. She felt a growing admiration for Daniel, not just for his culinary skills, but for his perspective on life. He seemed to have a balance and contentment that she longed for. As they cleaned up, their conversation flowed effortlessly. Daniel shared stories of his culinary adventures in Europe, while Emily opened up about the pressures of her job. She found herself revealing more than she usually did, feeling a sense of trust and comfort with him. "Have you ever thought about doing something different?" Daniel asked suddenly. "I mean, outside of law." Emily laughed softly. "All the time, but it's hard to walk away from something you've worked so hard for." "I understand," Daniel said, his tone serious, "but sometimes taking a risk can lead to something wonderful." Their eyes met, and for a moment the air seemed to crackle with unspoken possibilities. Emily felt a flutter in her chest, a sensation she hadn't experienced in a long time. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. Just then the door opened, and Sophie walked in, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Hey, Emily, ready to go?" Emily quickly composed herself. "Yes, just finishing up. Thanks, Daniel, for another great class." Daniel smiled warmly. "My pleasure. See you next week, Emily." As Emily left with Sophie, she couldn't help but glance back at Daniel, who was busy tidying up. She felt a strange sense of anticipation, a feeling that something significant was beginning to unfold. Walking out into the cool night air, Sophie nudged her playfully. "So, what's going on between you and Chef Charming?" Emily laughed, but her mind was already drifting back to the warmth of the kitchen and the possibility of what lay ahead. "Nothing. Yet," she replied, her heart racing with excitement and uncertainty. As she headed home, Emily realized that the cooking class had become more than just a distraction. It was a chance meeting that was starting to change her life in ways she never expected. The weeks flew by in a blur of sautéing, chopping, and simmering. Emily found herself looking forward to her cooking class more than she had anticipated. It had become a sanctuary, a place where she could escape the relentless demands of her job and immerse herself in the joy of creating something tangible and delicious. One crisp Saturday afternoon, Emily was bustling about her apartment, getting ready for a charity event organized by her law firm. The event was being catered by none other than Daniel's restaurant, Le Petit Jardin. Emily felt a flutter of excitement at the thought of seeing him outside the classroom setting. She arrived at the elegant venue, a beautifully restored historic mansion, feeling a mix of anticipation and nerves. The grand ballroom was already buzzing with guests, and waitstaff circulated with trays of canapes and glasses of champagne. Emily spotted Sophie across the room and made her way over. "Hey, you look amazing," Sophie exclaimed, giving Emily a once-over. "That dress is killer." "Thanks," Emily replied with a smile. "You don't look too bad yourself." They chatted for a while, catching up on the latest office gossip and admiring the elaborate decorations. Emily kept glancing toward the kitchen, hoping to catch a glimpse of Daniel. Her heart skipped a beat when she finally saw him emerge, looking effortlessly handsome in his chef's whites, his hair slightly tousled from the heat of the kitchen. Daniel spotted her almost immediately and made his way over, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Emily, you look stunning," he said, his eyes filled with genuine admiration. "Thank you, Daniel," she replied, feeling her cheeks flush. "This event is incredible. The food smells amazing." "Wait until you taste it," he said with a wink. "We're serving a special menu tonight. I hope you enjoy it." As the evening progressed, Emily found herself stealing glances at Daniel whenever she could. Their eyes met across the room several times, and each time she felt a spark of electricity pass between them. She couldn't deny the growing attraction she felt for him, nor the thrill of knowing it was reciprocated. During a quiet moment, Daniel approached her with a glass of champagne. "Care to take a walk outside? It's a bit stuffy in here." Emily nodded, grateful for the opportunity to escape the crowded ballroom. They stepped out onto a terrace overlooking a beautifully manicured garden. The cool night air was refreshing, and the soft glow of the garden lights created a romantic ambiance. "This place is beautiful," Emily said, taking a deep breath. "It is," Daniel agreed, leaning against the railing, "but not as beautiful as you tonight." Emily's heart raced at his words. She turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "Daniel, I..." Before she could finish, Daniel closed the distance between them, gently cupping her face in his hands. His touch was tender, his gaze intense. "Emily, I've been wanting to do this for a while," he murmured, his voice low and husky. Without another word, he leaned in and kissed her. The world seemed to melt away as their lips met, the kiss slow and sweet at first, then growing deeper and more passionate. Emily felt a warmth spread through her, a sensation of rightness that she hadn't felt in a long time. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. "I've fallen for you, Emily. I can't deny it anymore." Emily's heart swelled with emotion. "I feel the same way, Daniel." But she hesitated, the reality of their different lives crashing back. "This isn't going to be easy. We come from such different worlds." Daniel took her hands in his expression serious but hopeful. "I know, but I believe we can make it work if we both want it." Just then, the terrace door opened, and Max Brooks, a fellow classmate from the cooking class, stepped out. He paused, looking between Emily and Daniel with a hint of surprise and something else that Emily couldn't quite place. "Sorry to interrupt," Max said, a tight smile on his face. "Emily, I was looking for you. I wanted to ask if you'd like to dance." Emily glanced at Daniel, who gave her a reassuring nod. "Go ahead," he said softly. "I'll be here." Reluctantly, Emily let Max lead her back into the ballroom. As they danced, she couldn't help but notice the tension in Max's demeanor. He was usually charming and confident, but tonight there was an edge to him. I didn't realize you and Daniel were close, Max said, trying to sound casual. It's something new, Emily replied carefully. I'm still figuring things out. Max's grip tightened slightly on her waist. Just be careful, Emily. I've heard things about him. Emily frowned. What do you mean? Look, I like you, Max said, his voice lowering, and I don't want to see you get hurt. Daniel has a past. There are things he hasn't told you. Emily's mind raced. She had sensed that Daniel was holding back, but she hadn't pressed him for details. What kind of things? Max sighed, looking genuinely concerned. I don't know everything, but I do know that he was engaged once. It ended badly, and he hasn't been the same since. Just be careful, okay? The dance ended, and Max left her with a lingering sense of unease. Emily glanced back at the terrace, where Daniel was now talking to one of the event organizers. Her heart ached with conflicting emotions. She wanted to trust Daniel, but Max's warning had planted a seed of doubt. As the night drew to a close, Emily found herself alone with Daniel once more. They walked together to the edge of the garden, the cool night air filled with the scent of blooming flowers. Emily, is everything okay? Daniel asked, noticing her troubled expression. I'm not sure, she admitted. Someone mentioned your past, that you were engaged once. Is it true? Daniel's face darkened slightly. Yes, it's true. Her name was Jessica. We were engaged, but she left me without any explanation. Inquirer. It took me a long time to get over it. Emily reached out, taking his hand. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to burden you with my past, Daniel said, his voice heavy with emotion. But I should have been honest. I'm sorry, Emily. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. I want to be with you, Daniel, but I need to know that we can trust each other. Completely. Daniel pulled her into a tight embrace. We can, I promise. Let's take this one step at a time together. As they held each other under the starry sky, Emily felt a renewed sense of hope. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to face it with someone by her side. The sparks between them were undeniable, and she was willing to fight for what they had, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. The days following the charity event were filled with a mixture of excitement and anxiety for Emily. She and Daniel had crossed a threshold, and their budding relationship felt more real and intense than ever. Yet the shadow of his past engagement loomed over her, casting doubts she struggled to dispel. One evening after work, Emily found herself at Le Petit Jardin, Daniel's restaurant. The cozy bistro was bustling with patrons enjoying the exquisite dishes Daniel had meticulously crafted. She sat at the bar, sipping a glass of red wine, waiting for him to finish his shift. Clara, Daniel's younger sister, who often helped manage the front of the house, approached her with a warm smile. Hey, Emily. It's good to see you here, Clara said, her eyes twinkling with friendliness. Hi, Clara. It's great to be here. The food smells amazing as always, Emily replied. Clara leaned in, lowering her voice conspiratorially. So, how are things going with my brother? He seems happier these days. Emily felt a warmth spread through her at Clara's words. Things are good. We're taking it slow, but I really like him. Clara nodded approvingly. He likes you too a lot. I've seen a change in him since he met you. Just be patient with him, okay? He's been through a lot. Emily appreciated Clara's honesty and support. I will. Thank you, Clara. Daniel finally emerged from the kitchen, looking a bit tired, but lighting up when he saw Emily. Ready to go? He asked, slipping his arm around her waist. They decided to take a walk along the river, the city's skyline reflecting in the water as they strolled. Emily cherished these moments of tranquility, where they could talk freely and enjoy each other's company. Emily, I've been thinking about what you said the other night, Daniel began, breaking the comfortable silence. I want you to know everything about my past. No more secrets. Emily squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with emotion. I appreciate that, Daniel. I want to understand you better. Daniel took a deep breath. Jessica and I met in culinary school. We fell in love quickly and got engaged after a year. Everything seemed perfect until one day she just left. No explanation, no goodbye. I was devastated. Emily listened intently, feeling his pain as if it were her own. That must have been incredibly hard. It was, Daniel admitted. For a long time, I blamed myself. I thought I wasn't good enough. It affected my confidence, not just in relationships, but in everything. Opening Le Petit Jardin was my way of starting over, of proving to myself that I could succeed on my own. Emily wrapped her arms around him, holding him close. You're amazing, Daniel, and I'm here for you, no matter what. Their embrace was interrupted by the sudden appearance of Max. He seemed agitated, his usual charm replaced by a tense urgency. Emily, I need to talk to you, Max said, ignoring Daniel's presence. Emily stepped back, a protective arm still around Daniel. Max, what is it? It's important. Can we talk alone? Max insisted. Daniel frowned but nodded to Emily. It's okay. I'll wait for you. Reluctantly, Emily followed Max a few steps away. What's going on, Max? I don't trust him, Max said bluntly, pointing toward Daniel. There's more to his story than he's telling you. Max, Daniel has been honest with me about his past, Emily said defensively. Why are you doing this? Because I care about you, Max snapped. I've heard things, Emily. People say he's still in love with Jessica, that she's back in town and they've been meeting. Emily felt a cold wave of doubt wash over her. What are you talking about? Max softened his tone, seeing her distress. I'm just looking out for you. I don't want you to get hurt. Emily's mind raced. She had to know the truth. She walked back to Daniel, who watched her with concern. Daniel, we need to talk, she said, her voice trembling. What's wrong? Daniel asked, sensing the shift in her demeanor. Max said something about Jessica. Is she back in town? Have you been meeting her? Emily's heart pounded as she waited for his response. Daniel's expression darkened. I haven't seen Jessica since she left. Max doesn't know what he's talking about. Emily wanted to believe him, but the seeds of doubt had already been sown. Are you sure? Because if there's any chance you're not over her. Emily, look at me, Daniel said, taking her hands. I am over her. You are the one I want to be with. Before Emily could respond, Clara came rushing over, her face pale. Daniel, you need to come to the restaurant. It's Jessica. She's there, asking for you. The blood drained from Emily's face. Daniel looked stunned, but determination flashed in his eyes. Let's go. They hurried back to Le Petit Jardin, where Jessica stood in the middle of the dining area, looking every bit as beautiful and enigmatic as Emily had imagined. Her eyes met Daniel's, and a mix of emotions played across her face. Daniel, Jessica said softly, stepping forward, I need to talk to you. Emily felt like an outsider in that moment, her worst fears materializing before her. She stepped back, giving them space, while Clara stayed by her side, offering silent support. What are you doing here, Jessica? Daniel asked, his voice a mix of anger and confusion. I made a mistake, Daniel, Jessica said, her eyes filling with tears. Leaving you was the biggest regret of my life. I want to make things right. Emily's heart ached at the sight of Daniel's turmoil. She watched as he struggled with his emotions, torn between his past and present. Jessica, this isn't fair, Daniel said finally, his voice breaking. You can't just come back and expect everything to be the same. But I still love you, Jessica pleaded. Can't we at least talk about it? Daniel glanced at Emily, his eyes filled with pain and apology. I need to talk to her, Emily. Please understand. Emily nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. Take your time, Daniel. I'll be here. As Daniel and Jessica walked into the private dining room, Emily felt a sense of dread settle over her. Clara hugged her tightly. He loves you, Emily. Trust him. Emily nodded, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. She hoped with all her heart that their love was strong enough to withstand this unexpected test. The night seemed to stretch on endlessly as she waited, every minute a painful reminder of the fragile nature of trust and love. Emily sat at a corner table in Le Petit Jardin, her heart pounding as she waited for Daniel to emerge from the private dining room where he was talking with Jessica. Clara had brought her a cup of tea, but it sat untouched. Her mind raced with a whirlwind of emotions, fear, doubt, and a desperate hope that Daniel would choose her. After what felt like an eternity, Daniel finally stepped out, his expression grim and exhausted. He walked over to Emily, his shoulders slumped with the weight of the conversation. Jessica followed a few steps behind, her eyes red from crying. Emily, Daniel began, his voice rough with emotion. Can we talk outside? Emily nodded, following him out to the terrace where they had shared their first kiss. The night air was cool, and the sounds of the city seemed distant, as if they were in their own little world. Jessica came back to ask for another chance, Daniel said, running a hand through his hair. She admitted that leaving was a mistake, but she also confessed that she was dealing with a lot of personal issues at the time. Emily's heart tightened. And what did you say to her? I told her that I couldn't just pick up where we left off, Daniel replied. That too much has changed, and I have someone else in my life now who means a lot to me. Emily searched his eyes, looking for reassurance. Do you still have feelings for her? Daniel took her hands, his grip firm and steady. Emily, I won't lie to you. Seeing her again brought back memories, but they are just that, memories. What we had is in the past. I care about you, and I want to move forward with you. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. But what if she tries to come between us again? She won't, Daniel said firmly. I made it clear that my future is with you, if you still want that too. Emily threw her arms around him, relief flooding through her. Just, of course I do. I love you, Daniel. They stood there holding each other as the weight of the evening slowly lifted. But their moment of peace was short-lived when Max appeared, his expression dark with jealousy and frustration. Emily, you deserve better than this, Max said, his voice tight with anger. He's lying to you. Jessica told me herself that they've been meeting in secret. Daniel's eyes flashed with anger. That's not true, and you know it, Max. Jessica and I haven't seen each other until tonight. Emily felt torn, caught between two men she cared about. Max, why are you doing this? Because I love you, Emily, Max confessed, his voice breaking. I've loved you since the day we met. I can't stand to see you get hurt. Emily's heart ached for Max, but her mind was made up. Max, I'm sorry. I never meant to lead you on. My heart belongs to Daniel. Max looked devastated, his shoulders sagging. I understand, but if he hurts you, I'll be here. With that, Max walked away, leaving Emily and Daniel alone again. Daniel sighed, pulling Emily close. I'm sorry you had to go through that. It's not your fault, Emily said, resting her head against his chest. Let's go inside. I think we both need a break from all this drama. Back inside, Clara greeted them with a knowing smile. Everything okay? Better now, Emily replied, grateful for Clara's support. They sat down at a quiet table, and Daniel ordered them a light meal. As they ate, they talked about their future, their dreams, and their fears. For the first time, Emily felt a sense of clarity. She knew that their relationship wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to fight for it. A few days later, Daniel received a letter from Jessica. It was a heartfelt apology, explaining her actions and assuring him that she wouldn't interfere with his new life. Emily read the letter with Daniel, feeling a sense of closure for both of them. As summer turned to fall, Emily and Daniel's relationship grew stronger. They spent more time together, exploring the city, trying new recipes, and dreaming about the future. Emily even started helping out at Le Petit Jardin on weekends, discovering a new passion for the culinary arts. One evening, as they were closing up the restaurant, Daniel took Emily's hand and led her to the kitchen. I have something for you, he said, pulling out a small box from his pocket. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Daniel, what is this? He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. Emily Lawson, you've brought so much joy and love into my life. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me? Tears filled Emily's eyes as she nodded, too choked up to speak. Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed, sealing their commitment to each other. Just then, Clara burst into the kitchen, having overheard everything. Congratulations, she exclaimed, hugging them both. This calls for a celebration. As they popped a bottle of champagne and toasted to their future, Emily felt a deep sense of contentment. She had found love in the most unexpected place, and despite the challenges, she knew they were stronger together. Their love had been tested, but it had emerged unscathed, ready to face whatever the future held. And as they stood there, surrounded by the warmth of the kitchen and the promise of new beginnings, Emily realized that she had finally found her home. The days following their engagement were filled with a flurry of excitement and planning. Emily and Daniel decided to keep the engagement quiet for a few weeks, savoring the intimacy of their commitment before sharing the news with friends and family. One Saturday morning, Emily and Daniel strolled through the bustling farmers market, hand in hand. The air was crisp and the stalls overflowed with fresh produce, artisanal cheeses, and vibrant flowers. They stopped at their favorite vendor, where Daniel picked out some ripe tomatoes for that evening's dinner. This place is perfect for our wedding reception, Emily mused, looking around at the lively market. Something simple, intimate, with all the people we care about. Daniel smiled, squeezing her hand. I think that's a wonderful idea. Let's make it happen. They spent the rest of the morning gathering ingredients and discussing their future. Emily felt a sense of contentment she had never experienced before. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As the weeks passed, Emily found herself more involved in Le Petit Jardin. She loved the creative process of cooking and the satisfaction of seeing customers enjoy their meals. Daniel taught her everything he knew, and she quickly became an integral part of the restaurant's success. One evening, as they were preparing for a busy dinner service, Clara approached them with a big smile on her face. Guess what? I have some amazing news. What is it? Daniel asked, setting down his knife. I just got off the phone with a food critic from the New York Times, Clara said, practically bouncing with excitement. They want to feature Le Petit Jardin in their next edition. Daniel's eyes widened in surprise. Are you serious? This could be huge for us. It could, Clara agreed. But it also means we need to be at our absolute best. They'll be visiting sometime next week. Emily felt a surge of excitement and nerves. We can do this. We'll make sure everything is perfect. The following week was a whirlwind of preparation. Emily and Daniel worked tirelessly to refine their menu, sourcing the freshest ingredients and perfecting every dish. The entire staff rallied together, determined to make the most of this incredible opportunity. On the day of the critics' visit, the atmosphere in the restaurant was electric. Emily and Daniel moved seamlessly through the kitchen, their teamwork and chemistry palpable. As the night wore on, they received glowing feedback from their guests, and the critics seemed genuinely impressed. After the service, the staff gathered for a celebratory toast. To Le Petit Jardin, Daniel said, raising his glass, and to the incredible team that makes it all possible. As they clinked glasses and shared stories, Emily felt a deep sense of pride and belonging. This was more than just a job or a restaurant. It was a family, and she was grateful to be a part of it. A few days later, the article was published, and Le Petit Jardin received rave reviews. Reservations poured in, and the restaurant became the talk of the town. Emily and Daniel's hard work had paid off, and their future looked brighter than ever. One evening, as they were closing up, Daniel took Emily's hand and led her to the terrace. I have something I want to show you, he said, a twinkle in his eye. They walked to a nearby park where a small group of their closest friends and family were gathered, including Sophie and Clara. Twinkling lights adorned the trees, and a long table was set with a feast of delicious food. Daniel, what is this? Emily asked, her heart swelling with emotion. It's our engagement party, Daniel replied, smiling. I wanted to celebrate with the people who mean the most to us. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she hugged him. This is perfect. Thank you. As they mingled with their guests, Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude for the love and support surrounding them. Sophie pulled her aside, a mischievous grin on her face. Look at you, all glowy and happy, Sophie teased. I knew Daniel was the one for you. Emily laughed, squeezing her friend's hand. You were right. Thank you for pushing me to take that cooking class. As the night went on, Daniel stood to make a toast. Emily, you have brought so much joy and love into my life. I am grateful for every moment we share, and I look forward to building a future together. To Emily and to all of you, our wonderful friends and family, thank you for being here with us. Everyone raised their glasses, and Emily felt a wave of happiness wash over her. She knew that their journey had only just begun, but with Daniel by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came their way. As the party continued, Emily and Daniel stole a moment alone, standing under the twinkling lights. I love you, Daniel, Emily whispered, her eyes shining with love. I love you too, Emily, Daniel replied, pulling her close. Here's to our new beginning. With that, they kissed, sealing their promise to each other. Surrounded by the warmth of their loved ones and the promise of a bright future, Emily knew that she had found her forever home in Daniel's arms.